was a good role, good problems, really solid product and company, but having a really hard time really deciding. I was struggling to get to the next level, right? You spend the money to save yourself the efficiency and find the time. We just don't have enough money to buy it. It just wasn't a realistic jump. I'm still not building stuff that gets me to the CPO because nobody gets promoted that way. I had a really honest and pretty brutal discussion with Shobit and Sam. How this role came around was
Hey Justin, it's good to see you. How you doing today?
I'm doing well, Will. Glad to see you again.
Awesome. Well, I'm glad that we're here for this graduation celebration. Congratulations on the new role. Tell us a little bit about, just briefly, this company that you're going to.
Yeah, so I'm going to be joining Betterfly. It's a Chilean unicorn startup. They focus on the healthcare and insurance industries. And so I've been working with them for a little bit, but it's really exciting. Just a great opportunity for my career and me just generally.
Congratulations on that. That's wonderful. Before we jump into that journey, the job search and all of that, I'd love to hear just a little bit, just give everyone a snapshot of what your product career has looked like.
I've been in product and marketing for almost 15 years now. I started when it was still called, growth hacking. And so I've seen it all, but I've been a true like seasoned product manager coming from the IC role, working myself all the way up to a director, managing managers, and teams of people. And so for me, it's been a great journey and I love to just solve problems, see people, see users, see problems and get it gone.
Yeah. As that product management lens of life, right? Where just
Yeah.
the problems to be solved and get at it. So I love you bringing back the growth hacking term. They changed the term a little bit on
It's
us, but
called vibe whatever now, right?
that's true.
So,
I just saw something on Vibe Marketing the other day. We should
oh
chat about
no.
that later. It's interesting. So, but beyond that, okay, let's jump back into sort of the job search part. So, when you're thinking about before you joined the program, what was it like? What was your job search like before you had even kind of considered finding some help in the process?
When I was first thinking about the program, I was in a role that frankly wasn't too bad. Like it was a good role, good problems, really solid product and company. But one of the things that I felt was missing was I was sort of hitting what I felt like was a ceiling of what I could do. And so I was looking and trying to just sending resumes out, I spent a lot of time working on my resume and then never sending it to people, right? And trying to like get in touch with people, but having a really hard time really deciding like what's the direction? What do I actually like what is next? Because like when you're in the senior PM and like the PM levels, they're so focused on delivery, so focused on road mapping that a lot of times it's really hard to kind of step back and be like, hey, what do actual directors do? What do like principal PMs be? What are they supposed to be thinking about? And how do I find the time to actually build that muscle?
I love that. And I think it's in our careers, we do so much of planning and prioritizing for everyone else that trying to
Yeah.
apply it to the job search, we should be good at it, but sometimes we just need a little bit of help. When you're thinking about what your struggles or frustrations were, what was it that really started you feeling like you should seek out a solution for some of that?
Oh, absolutely. So this is interesting because I've been thinking back on it, and really what it came down to is like a classic build versus buy problem. It was just like I knew my problem, right? I knew that I was struggling to get to the next level. I knew I was feeling like I had hit a ceiling of what I could do myself, and I could go build it. I could find like, individual videos and I could practice and find every case study out there and really do all that and build it on my own. Or I could go buy it, right? I could go buy a coach, I could go buy a program, I could go, right? You spend the money to save yourself the efficiency and find the time. And it's like, wait, I'm actually really good at that decision because I'm a product manager, right? Like that's what we do. We convince people whether we build, whether we buy, and what's the pros and cons of those. And so I was looking at it, it became something where it was like, as a product person and somebody who wants to pursue myself in product and push myself further there, how did I, like, if I were to build it, just like a product, how much of that building becomes openings to new possibilities, new opportunities? How much of that is sort of just like we're building it because we just don't have enough money to buy it, right? And it became just a really easy question because it was like, wait, I don't no offense, Will, right? Like, but it's like I don't want to be a coach, right? Like, I don't want to become a coach, and like my personality may not be a very good coach to begin with, and so it's like I'm not gonna go build that, and so I should go buy it. And then I would like I started seeking out, hey, what are different coaches? What are different programs? What are the options for this? And so that's sort of where it became like a oh, like I don't doom scrolling through LinkedIn isn't helping me.
I think that's great. And no offense taken, not everyone should be a coach. I've talked
It's
about it
fine.
in product roles when we talk about the areas where we want to be number one, as opposed to I'd much rather own the intellectual property of X as opposed to just consuming a capability.
Exactly.
And if what you're wanting to do is not to become this number one at the job search process, you just wanted to land the job. You don't need to hone all of the skills to
Exactly.
be able to teach other people how to do it. So no, I love that approach. That's a wonderful product lens at this. When you were getting down to deciding, there are other programs out there. What was it about the intentional product management job search program that did you have any questions about it? Is there anything that just kind of helped you kind of get over that decision and decide that was the one that was right for you?
Yeah. Oddly, Shobit had reached out to me like years ago. It was crazy, but it was just something where I had been following some of the content because obviously I was trying to build it, like I mentioned, and it just became like this. Oh, I watch this guy sometimes. Oh, he has a program. It wasn't the only sort of thing I looked at, so I looked at other product programs or level up programs or even continue education with like CPO degrees and certifications. What it came down to was that I wasn't going to be able to go from my role that I was in to like a CPO. Like it just wasn't a realistic jump. And that's very helpful to know how to be a CPO at an executive level, but like it wasn't going to get me to the progress that I wanted to make, the proximal next step, right? And so the really thing that drove it home for me was one day it's like I was reading one of Shobit's posts and he's saying, as a product manager, you treat your job search as a product. You treat yourself as a product because that's literally what you're good at and you should do things you're good at. And it was like, yeah. And if I look at my career as a product, next proximal next step, I should be building stuff that gets me there. Because if I were the world's best PM, I'm still not building stuff that gets me to the CPO because nobody gets promoted that way. And so that was like one of the key sort of deciding factors because it was like, we're actually going to work towards that next proximal step. I'm not going to give you a bunch of stuff that you will never use for the next 6 years while you get to the really high levels. I would have ended up in the same place I was in my next role because I would just not be prepared for it. And I'm still doing the same build versus buy problem, and that's not impactful, right? That's really what it comes down to.
That's great. I agree. This idea that there are all of these skills that are suddenly going to be used in an environment where you don't have the role to use them yet. And so then it just becomes a bunch of theory crafting. And
Yeah.
that's, to me, that's one of the things that I think is great in the program is it's not theory crafting. You learn a skill, you put it to practice, and then you go and use it in the job. So, or in the job search. But for you, once you did join, one, I'm glad that you did. It was great to have you here and in the program. And then what was really one of those first aha moments when you dove into the work that you needed to do to prepare you in your job search?
I think so. A couple really big moments for me. You asked about first, so I'm just gonna give you three because you know that's the way I do it. The first one I think was my first discussion with the coaches was just like, what do you really want to do? Like, I had come into the program really not sure how good I was at product, what I would be want to do with it, with that ability, and even like sort of how far I could push it, right? And I had a really honest and pretty brutal discussion with Shobit and Sam also about like, hey, like here's what you could really look at as your next step and the step after that. Here's what those different choices end up meaning in different companies, in different stages of their company growth. And that was super helpful for me because it allowed me to really envision myself to say like, oh, if I were to go to this company or to that company, here is how that would change my life. And that was really empowering because going from a place where you're directionless to something where you're like, hey, oh, like I can actually see that. I can see myself like becoming that PM or that director or whatever and working towards that step and the step after became a really powerful driver for me.
I think that's great. I find so many times working with students the opportunity to provide a reflection and an objective view of what they're capable of as someone who has interviewed hundreds of people to be able to say, this is something you're really great at
Yeah.
and you're undervaluing yourself, which we all do. We all have a tendency, because we find it easy for ourselves, that it must be easy
Absolutely.
for everybody else. And we just don't
Yeah.
understand that other people value that highly. So I'm glad that that was a big part for you. So let's jump to this gig and talk
Sure.
to me a little bit about how did you go about landing it? What was this process with to do that? And how did some of the program and the training help you with that?
Yeah, sure. How this role came around was I had been reaching out to different people in my network and doing sort of the referral process. And then at some point, I just randomly connected with one of the recruiters for this role. And at the time, they weren't really trying to hire it, but they were really interested is they were looking for information and trying to gain knowledge. And so I worked with them, the company itself, for a little bit, just sort of talking about what I do and how I'm good at it and sort of the key industry knowledge that I had as a professional. And this was all sort of the way that we did it was very much trained through the IPM program. So like really being able to say like, here's the story of my professionalism. Here's how my background is going to be the most useful informational interview you've ever done. Here's the most like helpful consulting sort of work that you've ever seen. And that really led into this conversation of, hey, like this is really valuable for us. Like, would you want to like actually do this? Right? Like, can we make this into like a full thing? And that's sort of how this role sort of came around, because it's very similar to building the product, right? Like you have to show the value you have and let people understand that like, hey, there's a lot of value here and I actually want to purchase and buy that value, right? Because that's what they're doing when they hire you. They're buying the value that you're going to bring on a day-to-day basis. And that's sort of the mindset and sort of way that the whole interview process ended up sort of rolling out, because it was like, whoa, like we've been looking for somebody with this sort of knowledge for 6 months, and like you told us all the answers that we've been looking for in the last like 7 hours. This is insane. And helping to push that along with stuff that I had trained with you, with other coaches in the program, and really understood that like, hey, like just because I've been immersed in like understanding HR users and this sort of stuff for the last 5-10 years doesn't mean that people just know what they think. Like, here's how do we bring them in, how do we do the handshake process, etc. Those are all like incredibly useful and really sort of key to making sure that like the understanding was getting across in those conversations.
I love that. You and I've had some conversations about how in this journey, not just where you landed, but in the process, you made some intentional decisions to not go down certain paths as well.
Yeah.
Can you like just briefly, can you talk a little bit about that in your journey as well?
Absolutely. So I received other offers during my time in the program, and a lot of those offers were not bad, right? Like but they just ended up being not sort of the role that would fit me. And it was something where I knew that it could work. It was a very difficult decision often, because it's like, it could work. Like I could make it happen. I could see it. But one of the key things that really the program helped with was sort of saying like, hey, when we started this whole process, we really wanted to be focused on making sure this next role, this next step is at least at this level. It at least gets you this far, and this like compensation wise, it does this much, benefits wise, it does this much, location, all of these things were things that we literally wrote down. Wait, here's an offer. I love money. Like I would love to have this job. But wait, like looking back at it, does it actually fit what we said we wanted to do? And again, it comes back to here's the product, right? Here's the acceptance criteria of that product. Could we say that this had been a success? And really be able to like take the hard truth and be like, wait, no, and come back and say, I'm so sorry, but I can't accept this. Like if we had been able to, and like negotiate, obviously, right? Like if we can make it work to this level or that level, I think it's great. But if it doesn't, I really can't, because it's not the right thing for me. And I think that was a critical factor to allow me to sort of like mentally keep going as well. Being able to say that like take the successes of like, hey, I've received this offer, that's awesome, but like I have a stand, like this, it has to meet this bar, it has to get there, or else I can't take it. Being able to sort of say that, so that way I'm not selling myself short. I'm not selling my skills, my abilities for less than what they're worth in a lot of ways. And that was really powerful.
That's great. It's one of the things that we really do want to help people to realize is their value.
Oh, yeah.
And then it's in the name, be intentional about that next step. And
Absolutely.
sometimes that is, like you said, sometimes it's revenue, like your income, your base or total comp. Sometimes it's benefit, sometimes it's flexibility. And oftentimes it is a balance of a lot of those things that make your choice a little bit more clear when you have somebody to help you say, hey, let's check in. You said you wanted to do this. Now you're adjusting. Why are we adjusting? What's going on there? And so I love that. And I think your journey is a great example of it. So as we start to wrap up here, I'd love to hear a little bit about, in your own words, how would you describe the intentional product manager job search program?
The way I would describe it is that it has to be for you, right? It's one of the things that I love most about the program has been that everything is adjustable for your needs, but it also requires you to know what those needs are, right? And so it's for people who are committed to being active and hitting that goal. And that's really important. They have to actually want it, right? Like, of course, everybody would turn that down any day of the week. But you have to actually want that and be committed to being coachable, being able to improve and seeing a different version of where you are today, and really committing to saying, I want to be something more or different, or like, and so the intentional part I think is really important here, that there is a alignment with the program and yourself. Here's how I will improve with the materials and the things that you're getting from here. And if you don't use them, well, it's really hard to say it's not anything else, right?
Yeah, absolutely. The irony for me is I just saw today on LinkedIn from both Layla and Alex Hormozy, they posted on, people say they want all the opportunities, but they want to make sure that they keep their weekends free. And the whole sentiment is that sometimes you have to put in some work if you want to get a different outcome. And you just have to do the work. We are here to help and encourage you, but there is an element of like, we're not doing it all for you, that we're here to support you to become a great person at this. And there is work to be done because it is a new skill. So
I think, like, sorry to expound on it, but I think one of the things that in one of your sessions was like, sometimes like we are trying to join, like for people who are trying to join the intentional PM job search or interested in it, it's about being able to say like, what is happening today and what I'm doing today really isn't working. Being able to take that and really face that truth and say like, there are people out there that kind of know how to make that work for you. And you have to be able to listen and be able to say like I'm gonna have to spend 10, 20 hours a week sitting down and writing, sitting down and listening and even talking into a mirror. Like I did that as part of my training when I couldn't make different sessions. Just talk and listen to myself and look at myself and be like, hey, if I saw this person making this weird face on Zoom, that'd be weird. And so don't make that face in the interview, right? So stuff like that.
I love that. And you're absolutely right. There are things that we encourage people to do to help them improve, and including talking in the mirror or going for a walk and practicing a story as if you're talking in your phone, or record yourself and listen back, and they can feel but they make progress. And you've had some great success from putting in that work, which is awesome. So just two more questions for you. One of them is, if you had to think about who this program is really absolutely perfect for, who is that person and why is it perfect for them?
I think the program is perfect for people who are already like have the product knowledge and a little bit of hands-on experience and are trying to move from like a PM to a senior PM to further sort of levels, and really really try to expand what they know both about product and also about how to interview for product, which is almost two separate things, but be able to admit that like they can expand their world and really build their network that way. And I think that's sort of the perfect person who should think about, hey, intentional PM job search, this is where I'm going to get both of those things.
That's great. That's great. Well, is there anything that you would want to share to people who might be watching this, trying to decide in their own career journey if this is what's next? What would you like to say to them out there?
For those people, I think it's about understanding like, what do you really want? What is important to you? Because your job is a large portion of your life and it matters. And if it doesn't matter to you, maybe you shouldn't watch this video. But if it does matter to you, then really you need to think about what are the priorities in that? What is and how is the job you have today or the job you're considering meeting those priorities? Because if they aren't, then really maybe go back. What is really there that is keeping you there, or what is not there that should make you think about, hey, something different should be coming.
That's great. Justin, as always, it's been a pleasure to hang out and chat with you. And once again, congratulations on the new role. I can't wait to see what you're going to do bringing this unicorn here. And they are very smart to bring you on board. So congratulations again.
Thanks, Will. Always a pleasure.
If you want to be one of our next success stories, make sure you book a call with us. I've left a QR code for you to scan. Go to our apply page, book time with us, and chat about your career and your journey to your dream product management role.